Handicapper Steve here, handicapping the racing from Pimlico Racecourse here on Saturday. It is Preakness Day, the 20th of May, 2023. We're going to look at the Preakness and all the other stakes races on the program from Old Hilltop. But before I get on to that, remember to please follow me on Twitter at HorseRacingKid5 for more selections for race courses around the world, and I mean it around the world. Let's look at the stakes action from Pimlico. Races 4 and then 6 through 13. Let's get to it right now. Starting off with the fourth race. It is the Sir Barton Stakes. It's going for a purse of $100,000, race for 3-year-olds here. Field of 6 horses going to the Pimlico main track, the distance of ground of 1,700 meters if you want to go by that, or in the distance of ground of 1 mile and 1/16 on the Pimlico main track. 1,700 meters, 1 mile 1/16. And I show the diagram, just gives me a second to look down my notes, just bear with me. I go through these notepads like like it's going out of fashion. It's really ridiculous now. I have to come up with a better way because it's not, eco-safe, I think. But my top selection, I'm going to go with the 4-horse Arabian Lion, 4-3-6-1 for me in the Superfecta. 4-3-6-1 Super, top selection of 4-horse Arabian Lion, 3-year-old colt by Justify. Bob Baffert trains, John Velasquez gets the mount. Horse's most recent outing came the 15th of April at Keeneland, mile 16th in the Grade 3 Lexington, and he finished second by a half a length. He had a wide poster, he set the pace, he got caught late, but he didn't go down without a fight. He ran his heart out there. Also, Irad rode a very difficult race in the top lane where he swung in to come into first mission that day. It was just a weird race for him in that final 2 furlongs. Getting Johnny V back up, sitting a little closer, which I think should do him well. I think the horse can run a better race and find the winner's circle today. 2 back in the Bob Lewis at Santa Anita, mile 16th, 4th of February. He finished 4th by 5.5 lengths that day. And, he just kind of stalked and kind of hit the wall that day. Newgate really put on a show. This horse just wasn't getting to him there. And the Los Al Futurity at Los Alamitos, mile 16th in mid-December. As the 40 cents a dollar favorite, he crumbled. He finished 5th by 12 lengths. He stalked but never really got going. Practical Move, who was a next hour winner also, really ran better than him. And then an optional 100 Keeneland over the 7. He finished second by 3/4 length. Overbet at 71 cents to the dollar. He just wasn't getting there. When he does his better running style when he's going to the front end or he's on the lead. I think today John will take him to the front end, and I think he could get away with it. I know he's a short price here, but he's a very, very likely winner. Bit of an upset could be the 3-horse Tappett's Conquest. Last time on the Louisiana Derby, he moved a little bit off of a slow pace, but wasn't anything spectacular. Before then, in the Risen Star, I thought he was just a little bit too wide that day, and again, he just couldn't keep up there. But the race before that, Allowance race, where he sat close at the Fairgrounds in January, wasn't bad, and the race at Churchill in October last year wasn't bad at all, where he sat closer. It wouldn't surprise me if Luis Saez takes his horse a little closer on the speed favoring track. At 4-1, I would use him in the pick 4, but I could understand singling Arabian Lion also. But to recount my selection for the 4th from Pimlico, it's the Sir Barton. Let's take the 4-horse Arabian Lion. Give kudos to the 3-horse Tappett's Conquest. 4-3-6-1 Super. 4-3 in your multi-race. Over to race number 6 now from Pimlico, which is the Chick Lang Stakes. It's going for a purse of $200,000, race for 3-year-olds here. We have a field of 7 horses going to the main track, the distance of ground of 1,200 meters, or the distance of ground of 6 furlongs in the Pimlico main track. 1,200 meters, 6 furlongs in the Chick Lang. My top selection, I'm going to go with the number 7 horse here, Prince of Jericho. Let's go 7-1-5-3 in the Superfecta. 7-1-5-3 Super, top selection 7-horse Prince of Jericho. This 3-year-old colt by Munnings. Brittany Russell trains. Simon Russell gets the mount. They're cutting back in trip, most recently routing at Laurel, mile and 8th in the Federico Tessio, and the horse finished 6 by 2 3/4 lengths that day, and this horse was just wide throughout and never was really going. Refreshing back to a sprinting trip, which this horse probably wants to do. He's in a better spot to win. He probably wants to go 7, but 6 furlongs today should suit him well. He probably won't be on the lead. He'll probably have a good tracking trip. 2 back in the Miracle Wood at Laurel, 1 mile on the 18th of February. He finished second by 2 1/4 lengths that day, and he just kind of stalked that day. He moved a little bit late, but he still needed something there. And then the spectacular bid at Laurel, 7 furlongs, 21st of January. He won by 4 lengths that day, and from a tracking trip, he basically won for fun. 86 Beyer, a very, very good run. Refreshing here, cutting back and trip, training well at Laurel, and 9-2, I'm going to use him. I think your second likeliest winner is from the rail, the 1-horse Have a Meltdown for Bob Baffert and Luis Saez. Hasn't been seen since the Saudi Derby, going a mile there, where he finished second by a head that day. He stalked, he got caught by Commissioner King, who just had the jump on him. Third place finisher was Dermot Shodakate, who was a winner in the UAE Derby, and then ran not so good race in the Kentucky Derby. This horse just, he couldn't keep up there. Another horse, I think, cutting back to 6 should really suit him well. Before that, he won the San Vicente, coming home with a 94 buyer quite easily at Santa Anita, and won the Bob Hope in November quite easily. He doesn't want to go a long rounding trip, but I think 6, probably 7 should be even better for him. 8 to 5, I'll use him on the pick 4 ticket that begins with this race. Quite a few pick 4s this afternoon at Pimlico. So to recap my selection for the 6 from Pimlico, it's the Chick Lang. Let's take the 7 horse Prince of Jericho. Give kudos to the 1 horse Having a Meltdown. 7153 Super. 7-1 in your multi-race. 7th race from Pimlico, it is the Gallarette Stakes. It's a grade 3 event going for a $100,000 purse. Race for fillies mares, 3-year-olds and upwards. Field of 7 horses going to the Pimlico turf course. The distance of ground is 1,700 meters, or the distance of ground of 1 mile and 1/16 on the Pimlico turf course. 1,700 meters, 1 mile 1/16 here in the Gallarette. My top selection, I'm going to go with the number 5 horse here, Vergara. Let's go 5-1-4-6 in the superfecta. 5-1-4-6 super. Top selection, 5 horse Vergara. This 4-year-old filly by Noble Mission. Grand Motion trains. Joel Rosario gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came the 15th of October at Aqueduct, mile 8th in the Sands Point, and the horse finished second by a length that day. He sat back early. He was really closing up well behind Skims that day. He just missed, but she ran her heart out that day. If the race was mile 3:16, she probably would have won, but nothing bad about that race. Refreshing back to Pimlico, where she had a decent race last year with some trouble, I'm going to give her another chance to find the winner's circle. 2 back at Kentucky Downs, mile and 5/16 in the Dueling Grounds Oaks. She won by a head that day, and from a tracking trip, she dug it in, she grinded it out, and she got the job done. A very good gritty performance there. And then at Woodbine, 1 mile in the Ontario Collins Stakes, she finished second by a head that day. She was just a little bit wide. She got caught at the wire, but again, she ran her heart out there. And then the wonder again at Belmont, 1 mile and 1/8 on a yielding inner turf course. She finished 4th by 6 lengths that day. She was with them early on, but then just kind of hit the wall. I don't think she really liked the yielding ground. I don't think we have to worry about that today. I hope not. But coming here today, you should get a good trip. 7-2, I'll use her. I think your second likeliest winner here is the 1 horse White Beam for Juddmonte and Chad Brown. Most recently starting the Plenty of Grace at Aqueduct, the mile on the 16th of April, and the horse finished second by a neck that day, and she just missed late. Hervey Jets, who I fought back that day, got the job done. This horse just ran her heart out first start off the bench and first start stateside. Back second off the bench to even probably faster ground. She should really run a good race. If you look at some of the stakes races she's racing in Europe, those weren't bad races. In the St. Cry Stakes at Longchamp on very heavy ground in October, it was just basic listed stakes. She finished 9th by 4 lengths that day, and she just never really got going. I thought the race before that and a listed stakes at Newmarket over the mile, she had a very good place that day where she was closing up from nowhere, and the win at Haydock before that in a handicap was quite nicely also done. Training well Belmont at 3-1, she could definitely win in this race. And also the 4 horse Emmett Victor for Flavien Prat. It wouldn't surprise me if he wins. Hasn't found the winner's circle since the Wild Applause since last June, but has been running against some very tough race horses in this division. I'll use his horse at 4-1. Could definitely win on paper. But to recap my selection for the 7th from Pimlico, it's the Gallarette. Let's take the 5 horse Vergara. Give kudos to the 1 horse White Beam and the 4 horse Eminent Victor. 5-1-4-6 Super. 5-1-4 in that pick 4. The 8th race from Pimlico. It's a race very rich in history. It is the Dinner Party Stakes. It's a grade 3 event going for a $200,000 purse race for 3-year-olds and upwards. We have a field of 7 horses going in the Dinner Party. The distance of ground of 1,800 meters, if you want to go by that, or the distance of ground of 1 mile and 1/8 on the Pimlico turf course. 1,800 meters, 1 mile 1/8 here in the Dinner Party, formerly known as the Dixie, and years ago, this race used to always be 1 mile and 1/8, and about 10 years ago or so, they shortened it back to a mile 16th. This year, they increased the distance back to 1 mile and 1/8, which I quite like. That extra half furlongs makes it slightly better for those horses to come back from 1 mile and 1/4, I think. And I think it's a very good race this year. My top selection, I'm going to go with the number 4 horse here, Hurricane Dream. Let's go 4-7-1-2 in the superfecta. 4-7-1-2 super. Top selection, 4 horse Hurricane Dream. 6-year-old Gelding by Hurricane Cat. Grand Motion trains. Joel Rosario gets the mount. And the horse's most recent outing came 7th of April at Keeneland, mile 16th in allowance race, 100,000. And the horse won by 4 1/4 lengths that day. And basically, from sitting towards the back of the pack, he moved his way up a little bit wide, but he took off clear late. That was a very good run. Gonna have to sit a little closer than not coming from 10 lengths back like he did last time out. But if he does that, if he sits closer, he could definitely win by an open mile. I think. Two back in the Pegasus World Cup turf at Gulfstream, mile 8th and 20th of January. First start stateside. She finished 10th by 4 lengths that day. She didn't, break so well, which cost her. She moved late, but everybody in that race was moving late. It was an all-out finish, but she just couldn't get there. I thought it was an okay 10th place finish. She came home with a nice expire, not bad at all, but it was a very tough. Everybody seemed like they had a run of that Pegasus this year. But first start stateside, not the world's worst race for her there. And then the Prix d'Olaire at Longchamp, mile 3, 16th, 1st of October. She finished 7th by 15.5 lengths that day. Not a soft ground horse. Put in next to all the soft ground races. That's where she does her worst running. But before that, in Germany at Baden, a mile in a listed or in a Group 2, she finished 2nd by half a length and was really closing up well late. Nothing bad about that race. Her only victory as recently came at Chantilly in October 2021 in a conditions race, winning by 3/4 length, coming up from nowhere. I thought it was a very good race. First start gelding. After that, was racing against some very tough horses in the older handicap division in France. Coming here stateside, not the world's toughest race. It wouldn't surprise me. I also wouldn't be surprised if the 7-horse Emmanuel wins for Tom Pletcher. Most recently at in the Maker's Mark at Keeneland, going a mile, the stablemate up to the mark had a very good third. Modern Game's very good second. Chez Pierre won quite easily. This horse just wasn't getting into it, didn't break so well, and just never got a good turn of foot. They were crawling on the front end also, which probably cost him. Prior to that, the Canadian turf at Gulfstream, 1 mile, 16th, 4th of March, he won by a half a length that day, and he was a little bit wide, but was really closing up well late. Nothing bad about that race. And then the Tampa Bay Stakes at Tampa over in the mile 16th, winning by 1 3/4 lengths again. He was drifting that day off the bench, but it was still a very good run. It's probably best race with the Beyer coming back in 98. It saw a par race in the Saratoga Derby before that. He just, I don't know if he bled that day. He just never really got going on a very warm day at Saratoga. But since coming to the green stuff, he's really improved a lot. At 7-2 in this race, I think he can run a good race, but I also think you're not going to get 7-2 on him. I think he's going to go off around even. And also, watch out for the 1-horse Atone for Tyler Gaffalione. Most recently, the Munez Memorial. This horse just did not run that day. Very disappointing race, but before that, won the Pegasus quite nicely. Won at Aqueduct in the Lounge race before that quite nicely, coming home with a 103 Beyer in the Pegasus, a career, and a 100 Beyer at Aqueduct. Has been running against some tough horses as of recently. Not the world's toughest race. Had a decent third in this race last year. At 9-5, I'll use him on the pick 4 ticket. Rainbow Six begins with this race also, so use him there. But to recap my selection for the 8th race from Pimlico, it's the historic Dinner Party Stakes. Going to take the 4-horse Hurricane Dream, give kudos to the 7-horse Emmanuel, and the 1-horse Atone. 4-7-1-2 Super. 4-7-1 in your multi-race. The 9th from Pimlico, it is the Ski Pat Stakes. It's going for a purse of $100,000, race for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and upwards. We have a field of 10 horses going to the Pimlico main track. The distance of ground of 1,200 meters, or the distance of ground of 6 furlongs on the Pimlico main track. 1,200 meters, 6 furlongs here in the Ski Pat. My top selection, I'm going to go with the, where are we? I'm going to go with the number 6 horse Gunning. I'm going to go 6-2-7-1 in the Superfecta. 6-2-7-1 Super. Top selection, 6 horse Gunning. 4-year-old Philip Gun Runner. Kenneth McPeak trains. Flavian Pratt gets to mount. The horse's most recent outing came in the Dig a Diamond Stakes at Oaklawn. I like these names of these new races at Oaklawn. 1 mile in the mud on the 29th of April. And the horse finished second by 2.5 lengths that day. He didn't break so well. He moved a little bit late, but it wasn't anything spectacular. Cutting back in trip, which his horse I think really wants to do. He's in a better spot to win. 2 back at Oaklawn, 31st of March on the mud, 5.5 and optional 40, and he won by 1 1/4 lengths that day. And again, he sat back early, a little bit wide, but when he had the turn of foot, he took off clear. Very, very good race from there. And then prior to that, at Oaklawn, 6 furlongs on the slop and allowance race, he won by a neck that day. He was with him early on. He got caught. He didn't get caught late. He almost got caught late by Hyper Sport, but he dueled it out and he grinded it out. A very good race from there. And then at Churchill in the Dogwood, he finished 5th by 20 lengths, and he just had nothing. Absolutely nothing. He ran horribly that day. Something must have went amiss because you didn't see the horse for quite a few months after that. But if you look at some of the races at Churchill and at Ellis, in the summer of 2022. Those races weren't bad at all. Could definitely win against these horses. He's training well at Keeneland last time out, 48-3, the 17th best workout, 76. I'm gonna give him a shot here on the ticket. I think your second likeliest winner here is the 2-horse Bijun for Edward Allen and Javier Castellano. Was cross-entered for a race today at Belmont, so keep that in mind. Hopefully they run here. Most recently, the Garland Rose at 6 at Aqueduct. The horse finished second by 1.25 lengths that day, and he was with the pace setters early on. He had the lead, and then Betsy Blue just caught this horse. She just kind of crumbled, but she ran her heart out that day. Prior to that, in a lounge race at Aqueduct going 6.5 on the 13th of November, she finished second by half a length. Rosa Veloce caught this horse late. But this horse on the front end, she really ran her heart out that day. And then the Keeneland race, first off the bench, she ran horribly. She just stalked and never had anything. It wasn't her day to win. And then they tried routing her in the Black Eyed Susan last year, where she just couldn't keep the mile in the 8th. I think another horse cutting back to 6 is her better trip back to the home track or the home region, shall I say, the Mid Atlantic. Wouldn't surprise me if she gets the job done. We'll use her on the ticket. And the 7-horse Eeny Meeny Miny Mo for Luis Saez. She's the wise guy horse. She ran horribly in the Sugar Swirl and then 3 back at Colonial where she pulled up. But the race between at Laurel going 6 and a lounge race for 72, she finished second by half a length, and she just kind of hit the wall late, but she didn't. She ran her heart out that day early on. If she runs the Regret Stakes or some of the races like she did at Monmouth last season, she could definitely win against these horses. Like I said, she's the wise guy horse. She's either going to run a massive race or she's going to hit off the wall. 8-1, I would use her in the pick 6. But to recap my selection for the night from Pimlico, it's the Ski Pat. Let's take the 6-horse Gunning. Give kudos to the 2-horse Bijun and the 7-horse Eeny Meeny Miny Mo. 6-2-7-1 Super, 6-2-7 in your multi-race. To the 10th event from Pimlico now, it is the Jim McKay Turf Sprint. It's going for a purse of $100,000, race for 3-year-olds and upwards. We have a field here of 13 horses going to the turf course, the distance of ground of 1,000 meters, or the distance of ground of 5 furlongs on the Pimlico Turf Course. 1,000 meters, 5 furlongs, Pimlico Turf. My top selection here in the Jim McKay, I'm going to go with the number 10 horse here, Coppola. Let's go 10-3-1-5 in the Superfecta. 10-3-1-5 Super, top selection, 10 horse Coppola. 4-year-old colt by Into the Mischief. Dale Robins trades. John Velasquez gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came 2nd of May at Churchill, 5.5 an Obsolete Claimer. And the horse is by 4.25 lengths. And from a tracking trip, he really closed up from, a good mid-pack position. A lot of horses weren't closing up on that turf course at Churchill, and still aren't. A little bit more than they were that first week. But he seemed like he was the only one that made some small ground that day at Churchill, and he really put on a show. Coming in with a 100 barn, nothing bad about that race. Coming here with a quick turnaround of 19 days almost. He should really get a good trip, and I think he could find the winner's circle again today. 2nd of April was his previous race at Gulfstream, 5 furlongs off 62. He finished 4th by 2 3/4 lengths that day. He had a bit of a trouble trip that day. He never really got going late. It wasn't his day to win. That turf course at Gulfstream going 5 is really speed favoring on both lanes, so, it just wasn't his day. And then a Gulfstream, 5 furlongs off 6-2. He finished 4th by 2 lengths. He just kind of stalked that day. A little bumpy trip, which probably cost him there. And then they tried the horse on the at Aqueduct before the New Year's Eve. 6 furlongs off 6-2. Finished 9th by 17 lengths, and he just never had anything that day. But since coming to the green stuff and to the Romans barn, he's really become a better horse, and his buyers have been really getting, have been up to par. Could definitely win at 6-1. I'll use him. The 3-horse Artemis City Limits could definitely win for Ira Ortiz. Most recently in the Shakertown, he finished 11 by 6 lengths that day, and he just had nothing at all. He completely crumbled. It wasn't his day to win. Maybe he needed the race that day. Prior to that, the Brews Cup Turf Sprint at Keeneland over the 5.5. He finished 5th by 5.5 lengths that day. He stalked. He couldn't keep up late, but he outran at 75-1 odds that day, and then had a very massive 3rd in the Woodford and a very massive place in the Kentucky Turf Sprint at Kentucky Downs. Races at Saratoga could definitely win these against these horses. A 5-2, I'll definitely use him on the ticket. And also watch out for the 1-horse, Nothing Better. I love the victory on the 13th of April at Aqueduct going 6 on the lawn, where he won by 3/4 length. That could have been a stakes quality group of horses, but he really put on a show that day. On Christmas Eve in the Giannis, he had a very good place at Gulfstream, where he just couldn't keep up late, but he ran his heart out there, and then won the Aqueduct Turf Championship at 9.5-1 quite easily. Coming to Pimlico for the second time, he hasn't run here in quite a few seasons, but he's always done well in the Mid-Atlantic region. This kind of horse looks like that Pimlico Preakness Day Mid-Atlantic horse winning at 3-1. I'll use him on the ticket also. He can definitely win in this very nice turf sprint. But to recap my selection for the 10th from Pimlico, it's Jim McKay turf sprint. Let's take the number Wari 10 horse Coppola. Give kudos to the 3 horse Artemis City Limits and to 1 horse. Nothing better. 10-3-1-5 Super. 10-3-1 in your multi race. The 11th race now from Pimlico. It is the Maryland Sprint. It's a grade 3 event going for a $100,000 purse race for 3-year-olds and upwards. Field of 10 horses going to the turf course, or excuse me, to the main track. The distance of ground of 1,200 meters, or the distance of ground of 6 furlongs on the Pimlico main track. 1,200 meters, 6 furlongs here in the Maryland Sprint. My top selection here, I'm going to go with the number... One second. Sorry, I'm doing this video with like 5 hours sleep or 4 hours sleep, so just pardon me if I'm talking a mile a minute. I haven't had a coffee yet, and so I'm a little antsy. My top selection, I'm going to go with the number 8 horse here, Straight No Chaser. I'm going to go 8-10-7-2 in the Superfecta. 8-2-7-2 Super. 8-10-7-2 Super. Top selection 8 horse, Straight No Chaser. 4-year-old called by Spicer. Dan Blacker trains. John Velasquez gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came the 1st of April at Oaklawn. 6 furlongs and option 50 claimer, and the horse won by 7 3/4 lengths that day, basically on the front and all throughout. This horse put on a show that day. That was a very good run coming out east. Came home with Underwood and Byron. You know, nothing bad about that race. If he comes here today and runs a quarter of that race, he wins this race by a baker's dozen. Prior to that, the Palos Verdes at Santa Anita, 6 furlongs, 5th of February. He finished 3rd by 3 3/4 lengths that day, and he just was with them early on. Hopkins had the jump on him. He ran his heart out that day, but maybe he needed something more. And then before that, in the Malibu at Santa Anita, 7 furlongs on closing day, he finished 7th by 7 lengths that day, or opening day, shall I say. He was just with them early on, but then completely crumbled. I thought he got beat by better horses that day. That day, grade 1 quality horses. Today, not grade 1 quality horses. You should get a better trip. And then prior to that, in the end of October at 6.5 at Santa Anita, he won by 1 3/4 lengths and had the speed to win that day. He's a very fast horse. He's training well at Santa Anita. At 3-1, it wouldn't surprise me if he gets the job done. It also wouldn't surprise me if the 10 horse Wonder Where Craig Is gets the job done for Simon Russell. Most recently in optional 55 at Laurel going 6, he won by a head that day, and he grinded it out to the winner's circle. A very good race that day. 2 back here at Pimlico in the fall in option 55. He had a very good place that day where he got caught late, but he didn't go down without a fight that day, singing some wicked fast fractions. And the Russell Road at Kentucky, at Charlestown over the 7. He finished 4th by 4 3/4 lengths that day. And he stalked. He had the lead. He got caught late. What can you do? He just got beat by slightly faster horses on the day. And then had a massive place in the DeFrancis Dash here last summer. Before going to Dubai, he was pretty nicely run horse, but then he kind of lost some form since then. But he looked like he was gaining it back at the end of last season. That Pimlico race 2 back, and last time he showed really good form. Coming here today, 4-1, it wouldn't surprise me. I would definitely use him on the ticket. And also watch out for the 7 horse Nakatomi. Hasn't won in quite a few starts here since Keeneland in November. Came back to run an okay 4th in the Malibu, an okay 3rd in Tom Fool, and could have did a little bit better in the Commonwealth. But coming here today, lesser quality horses at 7-2 or 5-2, could definitely win on paper. I would use this horse in that Pake 4. But to recap my selection for the 11th from Pimlico now, it's the Maryland Sprint. Let's take the 8 horse Straight No Chaser. Give kudos to the 10 horse Wonder Where Craig Is and the 7 horse Nakatomi. 8-10-7-2 Super. 8-10-7 in your multi race. The 12th race now from Pimlico. It is James W. Murphy Stakes. It's going for a purse of $100,000. Race for 3-year-olds here. Only 9 horses, but I think this is a very competitive group of 9 horses going 1,600 meters, or the distance of ground of a mile on the Pimlico turf course. 1,600 meters, a mile here in the James W. Murphy. My top selection here, I'm going to go with the number 9 horse here, Niagara Rock. Let's go 9-8-3-1 in the Superfecta. 9-8-3-1 Super. Top selection 9 horse Niagara Rock. This 3-year-old colt by Leia. Grand Motion trains. Flavian Pratt gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came in Transylvania at Keeneland, a mile 16th on the 7th of April. And the horse finished 2nd by a length that day. He just kind of stalked all the way around the race course. He had a decent turn of foot, but he needed something more. He ran his heart out off the bench. 2nd off the bench, back to the Mid-Atlantic, where this horse should get a good trip. Blinkers on, should be a little bit closer. I think he could run a good race and find a winner's circle today. Two back in the Eddie Logan at San Antonio, 1 mile 30th of December. He finished third by a length that day. He was a little bit wide. He was closing up well late, but he still needed something more. He ran his heart out there. And then the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf at Keelan over the mile. He finished third by 3 1/4 lengths, and I thought he ran a terrific race first time routing. He stalked. He had the turn of foot. He got beat by two slightly better horses on the day, but, he put America proud that day. He's definitely been getting better with every single race. Back to a longer trip, which I think he should do wonders with. At 8-1, he could definitely win. The 8-horse Wonderful Justice for Luis Saez and Brad Cox definitely win also. Last time out in the Transylvania, this horse just had to check quite a few times, which cost his victory. He finished 9th by 8 1/4 lengths, never getting a good trip. Before that, he had a bumpy trip in the Black Gold at Fairgrounds over the mile 16th on the lawn, but he still won by a neck with a very good race. And then won from a stupidly wide poster on a very stupidly narrow turf course at the Fairgrounds in the main fetch weight. Won by a half a length. He left. He got the lead and he quickened him nicely. A very good race there after all said and done from that wide trip. Another horse that's been somewhat improving. Last time out, a little bit degrading with the bumpy trip, but he should get a better trip with a smaller group of horses here today. Training well, 5-1. He's another horse that could definitely win in this race here, to the point of I'm going to go too deep in the pick 4s and pick 6s in this race. I think it's a 2-horse race between Niagara and Wonderful Justice. But to recap my selection for the 12th from Pimlico, it's James W. Murphy. Going to take the 9-horse Niagara. Give kudos to the 8-horse Wonderful Justice. 9-8-3-1 Super. 9-8 in the multi-race. Let's get to the featured 13th race now from Pimlico, the big one we've all been waiting for. The 13th, it is the Grade 1 Preakness Stakes. It's a Grade 1 event going for a $1.5 million purse. Race for 3-year-olds here. Field of 8 horses going to the main track. The Preakness trip of ground of 1,900 meters, with a distance of ground of 1 mile 3/16 on the Pimlico main track. 1,900 meters, 1 mile 3/16 here in the Preakness. And, out of all the Triple Crown races, I always have a soft spot for the Preakness. It's just always a fun race. With that, before I get any further, we have a scratch here. Friday morning, opened up Twitter. They're taking out First Mission with a slight foot bruise, I believe. So First Mission's out. We're down to field 7, and I had to rearrange my picks because now I liked First Mission as my top selection. I was going to single him, actually, in the pick 4 and pick 6 to end it off. With that being said, now I had to rearrange some stuff. That's why my pick 6 ticket's going to cost a lot of money today now, with me going a little deeper in this race. And now my top selection is 7-horse Blazing Sevens. I'm going to go 7-3-6-5 in the Superfecta. 7-3-6-5 Super. Top selection 7-horse Blazing Sevens. Throw called by Good Magic. Chad Brown trains. Irides Jr. gets the mount. Most recently in the Bluegrass at Keelan, a mile 8th on the 8th of April. And the horse finished 3rd by 6 lengths. He sat back early. He was a little bit wide, but he was staying the trip well. Nothing bad about that race. I would like to see Irad get this horse into it early on. The Preakness is a speed favoring race usually. If he could get into it early on, he could definitely win here today. I thought he ran horribly, though, at Goldstream. Mile 16th on Fountain of Youth. He finished 8th by 26 lengths, and he got bumped that day. He just never really was comfortable. It was wide. It just wasn't his day to win. And then in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile before that, Keelan over the mile 16th. He finished 4th by 5 1/4 lengths that day. Again, a very horrible beginning. Not at his fault, but he just never really got going. But if you take out those 2 races between the Bluegrass and the Champagne, he's a very good horse. I thought his Champagne victory at Aqueduct on the slop going a mile, winning by 3 1/4 lengths, closing up from nowhere, was a very good race. He had a very good 3rd in the hopeful on the stop at Saratoga, where he was out in the parking lot that day. So that's how wide he was. And then on debut victory in July at Saratoga over the 7, winning by 6 1/4. Nothing bad at all. If he sits closer, it should suit him well. He's training well. Definitely get the mile 3/16. The father got it. At 6-1, I think he could get the race done. It also wouldn't surprise me if this match wins, but you saw a tired horse at the end of the Derby. He won the Derby by a length, closing up from nowhere. I thought it was a very good effort. I did have him that day, but I should have had him. Before then, in the Florida Derby at Goldstream over the mile and 8th, he finished 2nd by a length. He stalked. He had the lead. He got caught late, but, he ran his heart out that day. And then in the Fountain of Youth, he finished 4th by 6 1/4 lengths that day. And all chances were lost at the beginning where he hit the gate. He doesn't always break. He didn't break so well in the Derby. He definitely didn't break in the Florida Derby and the Fountain of Youth. That was the worst out of all of them where he didn't break. He's only won twice, the Derby and the main race at Goldstream on Pegasus Day, but he's been on the improve, what you want to see. Coming here at 8-5, he could win, but you did see a tired horse at the end of the Derby. Let's see if that takes something out of him. I kept going. I hate picking the Tessio horse in the Pimlico's Preakness. Hate it, hate it, hate it because they're always overbet. But I really like Perform here, the 6 horse Fergal Lich and Shug McGahee. The Tessio race, I thought he won by a head, where he won by a head, closing it from nowhere after a horrible beginning and a trouble trip. He showed potential that day. Before that one, a main special and going mile 40 at Tampa quite nicely, closing up from nowhere. Where he sits closer, he does better. His buyers have been getting better. It took him a little bit of time to break the main, but he's really, his last 3 were really good performances against some tough horses. It wouldn't surprise me if he would win. He's traded well, Belmont. If he doesn't win, I would definitely use him in the exact and trifecta scenarios. You could definitely get there, but he's your wise guy horse in this race. And like I said, I hate betting the Tessio horse for winning in the Preakness because they get overbet, but I like him quite a bit in this race. And also watch out for the 5 horse Red Route 1. The win at Oaklawn wasn't bad at all, and then the Rebel place wasn't bad at all. But he's a very deep closer here. He's gonna have to see a very strong pace to get that kind of trip. But he's another horse that's been on the improve. A 10-1, I would use him. I think the 1 horse National Treasure here. We're talking about him quickly. I think he's gonna get a little over bet. Does he want to go the mile 3/16? That's my biggest question with him today. He's gonna get blinkers on. It wouldn't surprise me if he's setting the pace, but let's see how long the pace could go. The 2 horse Chase to Chaos. He's stepping up a major class, second time on dirt. He's just not fast enough with the buyer numbers. 4 horse Coffee with Chris. The race 3 back in the Miraclewood was quite nicely done, but then couldn't keep up in the Tessio last time out. And I just think they're slightly better horses than him. And also, that's like I said, I think it's a 2 horse race or 3 horse race here. I think Blazing Sevens your likeliest winners. Likeliest winner Blazing Sevens. Maj second likeliest winner, and the 6 horse Perform third likeliest winner in this Preakness. So it's going to be an exciting one this year. But to recap my selection for the 13th now from Pimlico, it is the Preakness. Going to take the 7 horse Blazing Sevens. Give kudos to the 3 horse Maj and the 6 horse Perform. 7-3-6-5 Super, 7-3-6 in your multi-race. So good luck to all, and please follow me on Twitter at HorseRacingKid5. Good luck, everybody.